Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Steve Guttenberg about Heckle, which is available on demand and digital right now. It's an honor and privilege to be speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Hey, man. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Good to see you. This is the first thing that kind of comes to mind when I get confirmed to speak with you. I mean, you know, a lot of things you've worked on in the past have been very clear-cut, Steve, in terms of what they are. Clear-cut comedy, clear-cut drama. This film is like kind of a blend between obviously horror and comedy. I'm curious what that mindset is like for you, kind of blending those two together.
Well, you know, I really wanted to do a character that I could stretch my muscles and do something that I'm not usually easily, sweeping into.
Yep.
So this was terrific. And the fact that it was comedy, but it was a sort of a strange comedy.
Yes.
You know, it was a dark comedy. It was, whenever there's something a dark comedy, which has murder and an acidic personality, the funniness is a little different, you know?
Yeah.
So I was thrilled when I was looking for a part like this and these guys came to me. It was great.
It's very interesting as well, too, because from the viewer perspective, you know, the horror comedy kind of label and genre is very intriguing. What about someone kind of working and offer this opportunity? What's coming through your mind when you see that? Kind of, you talked about the character, but just seeing like horror comedy, I mean, it's interesting, that blend. I've always been a fan of that blend, but I find it's an intriguing blend. Like, it's different.
Well, you know, a lot of movies have gained a great deal of honor from doing that because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to blend two kinds of genres and have the audience stay awake.
Yep.
We did that with Heckle, and the filmmakers did. I just did my job. But I was thrilled that they were doing something that was not straight comedy, not straight, and taking a chance. And I think that's what movies are all about.
Yeah.
You know, taking a chance.
I mean, this is, at the end of the day, we talk about the blending. I mean, this is a horror film. I mean, I'm a huge horror fan. The fans all around the world just love it. I mean, this had a little run at FrightFest as well. What did you know about horror before doing this project in terms of like your interest? Like, what was going through your mind? Was there any kind of relationship between horror films and Steve Guttenberg before this project came along? Like, were you interested in this genre?
Okay, I particularly like Italian horror.
Yeah.
Czechoslovakian horror, Romanian horror. Even the Brits do brilliant horror. So I've been a big fan. You know, the United States doesn't have a hold on, you know, a license on horror. Yeah. Japanese horror is amazing, and all the suspense that comes along with it. Mm-hmm. And as well as Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, who created the American genre. Yeah. So I think that there's a great deal of wit and craft in horror.
Absolutely.
It's not, you know.
No, I agree with you. To add to that a little bit too, the growth of the genre in terms of what can scare people. I mean, I'm a big fan of the original tropes, you know, with the gore, the jump scares, like that I don't think is ever going away. But I mean, in this film too, I mean, you know, people are scary. The world is scary. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like people like hecklers are scary. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, you know, in this world, it's a different world. You don't know what you're going to be up against once you leave the comedy club. You know, years ago, somebody didn't like your work, they would yell out something funny, you know, and a comic would come back at them. Now they're pretty acidic, and people have a lot of guts because of, I think, social media too, of being able to converse with someone who's well known and say the most horrible things.
Yeah.
You know, which, you know, it's kind of funny, but kind of lousy too.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's crazy. I've interviewed stand-up comedians on my show before, and I had interviewed someone. I was asking about hecklers, and I guess it was a very too soon moment because he just did a show the night before and had an issue with a heckler, and he just went off. And I was kind of like in a position where I was like, he was just going off, and I was like, I feel like this is very fresh. Like I feel like, and he's like, yes, it happened last night, so thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, they're tough because, it's the same feeling you have when you're in a crowd of guys, and somebody says something rough.
Yeah,
and you can say something rough back, but at one point it ends. Whereas with a heckler, it's not that it doesn't have an end until you say, hey, shut up, or the crowd shuts them up,
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny too, because you see online too with the hecklers, like, comedian, school's heckler, right? And then you see in the comments, people are just like, it got like worse after that. Like they were yelling at each other. Like it is a scary scene. And this movie is like, I wouldn't say like poking fun, but it's like, there's like a heckler and there's a killer. Like it's kind of bringing those two together a little bit.
Yeah, and this guy was such a acidic jerk.
Yeah,
that I really liked working on that character and finding places deep inside myself, and then talking to psychologists and watching certain movies like King of Comedy or There Will Be Blood, where guys just lost their minds, which was pretty great.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's so many amazing ones. You have worked on some of the greatest movies of all time, and because of social media and streaming services, there's no shelf life for a lot of these movies. What do you kind of think about that? It's a pretty cool feeling to know that a lot of these movies are always going to be around.
I think it makes me feel so good, and gives me a great deal of satisfaction that there's resonance in my work. I just was told that The Bedroom Window is gaining a lot of traction right now.
Yep.
And that's just great because it really was a terrific movie.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I've been a big I'm a sports fan. So I watched Big Green probably like thousands of times growing up, I have to say.
Great movie directed by Holly Goldberg, who's a really talented writer, director.
I know there's been so many of them. Is the mindset when you do like multiple movies of like of a series kind of different, where it's like the same character, but like what's that like a little bit? I'm curious about that. Like For a Minute, a Baby, and Please Cat Me, and everything.
Well, sometimes it's about extending the story, and then sometimes it's about commerce.
Yeah,
and it's show business. So, Coppola made Godfather 2. And I think that there was a lot of story to tell.
Yeah.
And he made Godfather 3, and I think there was a lot of story to tell, but there probably was a lot of money to be made in doing the third. So I think once you complete the first sequel, anything after that is a mix of art and commerce, because the studio knows that they can grab some money.
Yeah.
So whether it's doing another Scream or doing another Nightmare, or there's a smile with that. Like, yeah, we're doing another one.
I didn't think about that. I mean, the commerce that's definitely there, but I didn't think about that at all. So that's a very good point. It's so true. Before we wrap up very quickly, getting back to Heckle, when people get a chance to see it, I mean, escapism, horror movies, that's what they're for entertainment. But diving deep into it a little bit more when people get to watch it, because it's out now on digital on demand, Steve, what are you hoping they get out of it, takeaway wise?
I hope they are entertained, but also see what a dark person has inside him to affect the people around him.
Yep.
Just his relationship with his wife was so terrible. Yep. And then you knew that this was to me a character study about a guy who didn't like himself, was disappointed in what happened to his life, disappointed in some of the choices he made. So that comes out in how he responds to other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And I hope that they're scared.
Yeah.
You know,
of course. At home, they're scared. Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for your time and come on Popternative to chat about Heckle. I really appreciate it.
this was great. You're such an energetic, talented guy with a great brain. Thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate that. So the movie's out now, and people can follow you. There's an Instagram account if people want to keep up to date with everything, right?
Instagram and Twitter, and I'd love to see what they say, comments, and watch my stuff. Absolutely.
Amazing. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Steve Guttenberg and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.